Hi guys, welcome to Goalie Talk. This time we have Harry Gibson, the Surbiton and Great Britain goalkeeper. We've known Harry for quite some time. I've done some coaching with him before at a junior level and a senior level as well. He is a fantastic bloke. We talk about mental health and we talk about what it's like going from junior international hockey to senior international hockey and some bits in between. Really hope you enjoy this one. Harry's also doing something amazing for charity with one of his collaborators, Crazy Catch, as well. Make sure you listen to the end of this to get all the details with it as well. Something that's slightly closer to his heart too. Really hope you enjoy this one. Let us know what you think as well, and we'll see everyone soon. Hey Harry, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I'm actually quite jealous of your professional setup with the headphones and the microphone. It looks like you've done this before.
I haven't, actually. I listen to podcasts religiously, so I feel like I've done this before. I'm well prepped, but actually just from the YouTubing, all the gear. So
good. Good. Well, it looks professional anyway, so I'll better up my game next time. Yeah. So I know you, Harry. We've known each other for quite some time, actually, probably over a decade. I remember coaching you down in Exeter. The old JRPC days when you might not remember, you used to play in a different brand of kit as well. Won't mention any names.
I think
no, it wasn't.
Was it not?
No, it wasn't such. It was TK.
Oh, not that. Oh, yeah. Those. My reckless teenage years.
Yeah. So we've known each other for a fair bit of time. West Country boys as well, which is always always pleasing that exactly we're representing there as many top class goalkeepers are. I mean, West Country as well.
The factory down there.
But for those that don't know you, who are you? Where do you play? What do you do?
My name's Harry Gibson. I am a hockey goalkeeper by trade, I suppose. I, like you say, grew up in the West Country, same as Exeter, Thornton, bit of a mix, and then went to Loughborough University, and represent, following in the footsteps, and played age group hockey right the way through, like you say, JRPC, and then through to England 16s, and actually through the great and powerful Steve Bayer was my kind of jumping off point from meeting him and getting him to coach me, and that was kind of my progression. And then Loughborough, and then into the senior squad at 21, straight out of university. So and then I've been in that for 6 years now this summer. So
6 years, wow, that's probably flown by, hasn't it?
It has, it's that strange thing where it feels, in a lot of ways, doesn't feel that long, because I kind of did half a cycle before Rio, but I was part-time and there was a lot of other stuff going on. I was close to, I was number 3 for Rio and was kind of, I thought I was pushing on the door, but realistically knew that wasn't likely. And then it's kind of like one full cycle up to when Tokyo should have been. It goes quick, but at the same time, I look back at it and it feels like absolutely forever. It's my whole adult life, basically, to this point. So, it feels like a long time.
Well, like most things, when it's exciting and fun and different, it tends to go by pretty quickly. Just real quick, just on the whole Tokyo thing, like how's you sort of settled into the fact that it's going to be next summer?
It's difficult. It's obviously the right thing to do, and it's one of those things you see coming, because obviously as soon as this started happening, it's like, oh, how bad is this? Is it that bad? And then there was a week of pure just denial and torment, and just not doing anything and thinking that the world was going to end. And then we were doing all our physical training from distance, and it's like, right, how can we best be prepped, assuming this still goes ahead? And then you kind of transition into, okay, this probably isn't going to go ahead. What's happening? Okay, it's postponed a year. And then as soon as it was postponed a full year, it's like, well, you know, this, I've kind of not thought about it the same, in terms of preparing. The issue being is that I had a lot of stuff planned, for this kind of, autumn, including my wedding and a few other things. So
you and me both, mate. You and me both.
I know. I won't talk to you about that.
No, it's we can find each other's shoulder. That's fine.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a crazy time, and I keep just trying to keep perspective, because it's an issue, and it's caused a lot of things that I now need to sort out. But at the same time, I'm healthy, and I haven't. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the world, so it's fine. It's another year.
As soon as the news came in about it, obviously it was, by that point it wasn't that surprising. It was
exactly
made a little bit of peace with it beforehand, but just needed the confirmation anyway. And like you said, well, there are plenty more other things going on in the world at the moment that need a little bit more attention as well. So, but it does lead us to then think about other things. And one of the things that I just want to touch on briefly, you've put a few videos out there recently that are really interesting about how you've been dealing, how athletes can deal with like this time away from other people, away from their normal activity. You've done a little bit on how to make sure that you're staying healthy in this period of time. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about those? Like, because you've done a few vlogs in the past and things that have been really interesting and insightful about whether that's in tournament time or just training time or your own personal experiences. Definitely worth a watch as well. Definitely worth it. If you want to get onto Harry's, where are they actually? Where would you find them?
All of them on YouTube, at Harry J Gibson, same as my Instagram. There's a link on my Instagram as well. Good plug. Thanks for that. But it's something I enjoy doing, and it's something that, as a kid who was hockey mad and just trying to absorb everything I could about hockey goalkeeping effectively. Like, I remember there were like 3 videos on YouTube. There was one of Ali McGregor at Loughborough diving that someone had ripped off. I watched it religiously. So part of this for me was like, right, in the next year, as in this is the last year gone, like, how can I, what would I wanted to have seen if I was a kid? What content would I wanted? And obviously, like, the world's changed a lot since then, and everything's online now, and there's so much online content going around. It was something that I just wanted to kind of get everything out there, in terms of my experience, so that other people could learn from it. And it's something I enjoy doing anyway. And obviously, having being in lockdown has given me a lot more time, which has meant that I can actually action a few of the videos. And there were some I had lined up, which then weren't relevant. And obviously, everyone's put out workout videos and things like that. And I just wanted to, help people make the best of the situation and kind of give a bit of insight into what I thought was appropriate. And because it is, look, there's opportunity in everything. So being locked in your house for 5 weeks with not a lot else to do gives you time and space to focus on stuff that realistically you wouldn't have focused on if you were going to school every day or work every day or whatever it was. So I think there's always chances to get better, and even if you can't get on the pitch, there's loads of stuff you can do that can help. So it was just kind of trying to express that. Yeah,
for sure. And I kind of in the same vein, it's kind of why we've put this together as well. So there's other things to think about, other things that also potentially we haven't had time to do from a coaching point of view. Just sharing a bit of knowledge in the wider sort of goalkeeping / hockey community that wouldn't otherwise get looked at or get spoken about. And one of the things that, and I want to get into sort of what we want to talk about as well pretty quickly. So one of the things that you're relatively vocal about, either on the vlogs or your social media feeds, is mental health. So I want to get into that a little bit as well, and then I want to have a chat with you about being in the sort of centralized program with GB, what that's like, and with the pro league that's come around, how that's balanced with things like your club hockey and sort of levels of consistency as well, and whether that's been something that's been nice to adapt to with something like the Pro League where you've got more consistent games. But we'll come on to that a little later. But I I kind of want to get straight into the mental health side of things, because I know, it's something that you have obviously spoken about and something that you deal with as well. But just tell us a little about what you deal with and how that affects you, and how you what daily effort you go through with it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you talk about like what do you deal with, what people battle with, and I think it is it's hard. Everyone's experience is unique, and the way that we see the world is unique. And when it comes to mental health, I think one of the issues is people who haven't necessarily experienced mental health problems still have mental health, and that it's all kind of on a spectrum. So I think, for me, I've talked about having anxiety, but I think one of the problems with the stigma around mental health and other things is that the vocabulary is a bit limited. So for me to say I have anxiety will mean this is an extremely broad term, and it will mean different things to different people. So people who have it or have had it, or everyone has it, everyone gets anxious about certain things.
Yeah,
it just manifests itself. So for me to say I have anxiety kind of labels it, which I think for some people, is uncomfortable to do. Whereas for me, it's just kind of at certain times around certain things, I can be anxious, and certain things set me off. And I think it's, for some, I go weeks at a time without even thinking about it if I'm in a good spot or whatever it is. And then other times are obviously much harder than different things. So I think it's more like the more we can kind of talk about it as like the relatable way, especially for people listening to this, is that it's like an injury, so a physical injury. So if you have a dodgy knee that you hurt doing something, some days that will give you pain, and some days will be worse than others, and you'll know that certain activities will make your knee hurt the next day. And all these things are exactly the same as mental health. Like, you have certain things that trigger it and make it worse on certain days, or different things, and then you have ways to deal with it and manage it and rehab it. So I think it's all the same. And some people don't have any pain ever, and that's brilliant. And some people have terrible injuries. But for me, it's anxiety, and it relates to certain things. Like, hockey is both a trigger and a cure, and that kind of performance environment. But I don't. I also feel bad talking about it sometimes, which I think is part of the problem around stigma, is because I know that some people have it so much worse than I have it. Yeah. And I'm extremely privileged and have lived a relatively, an extremely comfortable, relatively sheltered life, in a lot of ways. So I feel, I'm not here to say that I've, got all these issues and all this sort of stuff, because I definitely don't. But I still think it's worth talking about, because everyone's, individual experience is unique.
Yeah, so one of the really key things I think that you're talking about is like not thinking about what happens if and when you're struggling with something. It's about trying to have a preventative measure that's going to help, both on, specifically for you, both on a day-to-day level, but also on a performance level as well. So I think people have this idea of elite athletes as people that just automatically have the ability to be strong physically and mentally. Mm-hmm. And it's a complete illusion, because actually a lot of people have to deal with elements of it potentially stronger than others. I mean, we've seen it all over the place with sport. Levels of depression, anxiety, other issues, and there's lots and lots to it. Like, we come across it with younger goalkeepers as well, and athletes that we see, and school kids as well, because we coach in a lot of schools too. That it's, as you say at the beginning, there's a spectrum. You could be mentally healthy but have an underlying mental health issue, but at that point you're in a good place. So where are you on that bit? You could be mentally unhealthy but not necessarily have a diagnosed problem, but you're just in something bad's happened and you're just not in a good place. So everybody's dealing with things in different ways, and it could be that you've got a wedding speech to write, and that might be filling me with all sorts of dread, and there's a problem, there's an issue right there. I think the key thing is recognizing it as all the gym work you're doing from a physical point of view, you're preparing yourself for something. And I think certainly from a psychological point of view, there's just as much emphasis that needs to be put that probably isn't being put at the moment. I think you can see that across most sports. There's still a lot in it that people aren't necessarily doing. Is that something that you think about?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right. There's kind of a continuum, I think, and I think people forget that there's kind of the performance side of it, and that anxiety is a tool as well. So, for example, like I have never, and I only really realised this at uni when I was living with other people, but like I'm not late for stuff very often at all. I've never missed an exam or a time on something because I'm the guy who, when you got that exam coming up in a couple of days or whatever, I have to recheck the thing every 20 minutes to make sure that it's the right date and time. Whereas, you know, I lived with a guy at uni who missed an exam once completely because he didn't check the time on the thing. So, like, it's a tool, and for me, it's undoubtedly helped me get to where I am today in terms of my performance, because mine is massively born out of like performance anxiety and have I done enough today to, you know, get where I need to go? Was this good enough? Was that good enough? And at the end of the day, I'm extremely self-critical. So a lot of mine comes from me kind of beating myself up in my own head about this wasn't good enough, that wasn't good enough, you did this well, blah, blah, blah. So like actually there's a massive continuum. And like you say, from a sporting point of view, like a lot of elite sports people, I think, and the ones that I've heard talk about their anxiety and everything else, comes from actually they're very good at putting themselves in the right headspace, or at least a productive headspace to perform well under pressure. But the problem is a lot of that causes issues in your then normal life, I think, because you either become this absolute rock who is just so impenetrable from outside distractions or other things that you're emotionally completely blocked off to the world, and then when you try and go home that just doesn't work, or you put so much pressure on yourself that you are able to perform, but then you put pressure on yourself the rest of the time anyway. And that's what I struggle with, is that I can't turn that performance mentality off. So like my fiance Jess was taking the mick at me the other day because I've been making protein iced coffees, which are like, yeah, I go into. Yeah, they're really nice.
Can you send us the recipe? We'll put it in the.
If you break the words up, that's what's in it. So there's protein powder, there's ice and coffee, and then your kind of non-dairy milk of choice. But anyway, I made one the other day and I messed the espresso up because I wasn't really concentrating, and it was really bitter. And I tasted it and I beat myself up about it. And Jess was just like, "Mate, it's fine. What are you talking about?" And I was and I was like fuming. And I think probably because I haven't got the performance, you know, whatever, that was my big performance for the day. And I messed it up. So I was like beating myself up.
To shine, I'm going to make the best,
exactly,
protein iced coffee in the world.
Exactly.
What protein do you use? Is it just a straightforward whey protein?
Just a whey protein. I mean, you're going to want to go for like a sweet kind of vanilla or something that goes with coffee. I wouldn't put strawberry or something in it.
No.
Depends where you buy your protein from.
Caramel might work.
Yes, we can't really get funky flavors that are batch tested. So we basically get.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the real issues of being a professional athlete. You can only get like vanilla, strawberry, or chocolate, and I don't really like strawberry or chocolate. I know, yeah. But, so it's vanilla usually, but you can use different flavors.
When we're back in normality, you'll have to make me one, and I'm sure I'll give it a thumbs up. But how? Just going back to what you're talking about, when you get into a place where you are anxious, or and how do you? Let's say it is hockey related, whether it's on the pitch or otherwise. How do you then bring yourself back to use it? So you were talking about how you can use your anxiety for good and sort of steer that in the right direction. One of the books that actually you recommended to me a couple of years ago called The Pressure Principle. There's a really good bit in the beginning of this. I think I'm right in thinking it was that book. Is about how everybody gets a sensation of some description about nerves, anxiety, something or another, and people associate a certain type of them with butterflies, what they call butterflies. And this, the author of the book, Dr. David Alred, was talking about how you make them fly in formation. So trying to then actually organise that into ways. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think Simon Sinek talks about that as well. He talks about the if you swapped the words like stress or the feelings of that for excitement, they're the exact same thing. Sweaty palms, increased pulse, all those things. So reframing is really important. Yeah, and I think it varied. That's kind of, if you're talking about nerves and excitement, that's always something that I've enjoyed, the pressure of that, and that can kind of channel. But I think actually, if you take it back to kind of like the anxiety bit of it, which for me is usually just chronic overthinking, and my brain just leaps forward in time. So if I let a goal in training, rather than just thinking, oh, I let a goal in, why did that happen? My brain goes, you let a goal in, the coach saw that, you're not getting picked for the next tournament, you're going to get dropped, like that. It does that immediately. So getting a control on that is the issue. So for me, anxiety as a tool is very useful for in and around hockey and just my day to day. It can be useful when controlled, but actually on pitch, for me, it's about quieting my mind basically and just being as still as possible, so that I can be really present, focused, and just do the job that needs doing. I think that's something I found really useful. So I think, it's about having strategies that you can rely on that kind of call you back. So a key word, or I think being focused on the present is really useful. I know, our psychologist talks about some sportsmen, some cricket players, I think, who every so often just remind themselves to look at certain places in the stadium. So you remind yourself to look kind of top left, or find someone wearing a red top or something, and basically it just recenters you back to where you are, that you're in the present moment. And I think that's really useful, and everyone will have different things that they need to do. So if you're someone that gets super angry because you've let goals in, and we've all seen that, I've done it, everyone, smash your post against the stick, that's going to be a different technique to
smash the stick against the post. You can be a good. I know you're strong, mate. Pick up the
post against the stick. Did I say that? Yeah. Anyway, you try that. But
you're gonna have to be really angry for that to happen, I think.
Yeah, I know, yeah. You basically, I think it's kind of self-reflection, but it's right, where do I need to be mentally to play at my best? So for me now, I used to think it would be really amped up, so hardcore music, loads of caffeine, ready to go into battle. And actually I've realised that I'm much better when I'm chilled, relaxed, calm. So now it's much more mellow music, or tempo, and just to focus on being present, if that makes sense. It's finding those triggers and having keywords Maddie writes in her bottle. It's stuff like that. It's having those quick things that can drag you back to where you need to be.
Yeah. So is that, and I'm assuming that's just been a process of exploration, just seeing what works, what doesn't, and trying a few things.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, if you've been stuff you've been dealing with as a younger, let's say a teenage Harry Gibson, sort of 16, 17, 18, these things manifesting themselves, realizing what they are, is probably the first thing to recognize. Is what is this? Is that normal? Is that something actually I've got to try to deal with? Do you think that's really hard to pick up? Is that something that you wish you'd maybe recognized a little earlier, but then equally, how can you? Is that really difficult?
Yeah, it is difficult, and I think you remember certain things. And I think the first time I became aware of my mental health was in sixth form. I went to a different school for sixth form from the school that I'd been at. So I was, I didn't know anyone. I went from being the only good sportsman in my little school in Uffculme to being one of 200 internationals in my year or whatever it was. Like, you know, and at the same time that I had family stuff going on, parents divorcing and things like this. So that was the first time. And you're right, you don't necessarily know what it is, and I didn't know what it was at the time. But I just remembered I became very, I mean, I'm kind of introverted anyway, but I became extremely introverted, didn't talk to anyone, just got on with my day, went through this thing. And it was actually very easy then, because it was a boarding school, to just, you can basically go the whole day without talking to anyone if you want to. Because when you're not at a lesson, you can just go back to your room and then blah, blah, blah. And that took me, I was in a kind of funk about that and for a long time. And it took me the best part of a year to kind of work out, actually, is this best? And then I started talking to people and vocalizing a bit of how I was feeling, and I made friends a bit as well, which helped. But like, to realize actually that's not a good place. And I still do that. That is still a habit of mine when stuff is going badly or I'm not in a good place, is that I'm very inwards and introverted and will take myself away from over that. And I'm an only child and all the other psychological explanations for all these things. But that's my default. So yeah, it's learning that. And at the end of the day, that's part of growing up and, you know, getting to adulthood, is that you slowly learn these things about yourselves until you have a better grasp on it. But yeah, being able to open up and have the conversation, I think, is that's just the main thing. And that's for adults as well as kids. But it's just trying to work out, and if you can have someone really close to you, whether that's a parent or a best friend or something, who knows you well enough to be like, this isn't you, or this isn't you at your best, like, but you have to open up to get to that point. So I think that would be the main thing, is that if you're going to go through stuff and it's going to test you in different ways, but it's having people there and being able to vocalize how you're feeling that will actually help you work through it quicker.
Yeah. It's been really amazingly insightful of you talking about your experiences and looking back at hindsight. Hindsight's obviously a really useful tool. It can be just as annoying as well when you think about some instances that we've all done in the past. I think that the key thing for me is that, you said this earlier, is everybody has mental health. Like, it is totally different for different people going through their lives in different ways, but there's a consistency that everybody needs to be aware of their mental health, whether that's just, all good at the moment, or no, probably need to talk to somebody about something. So I'm not quite sure that it's where it needs to be, and reaching out to whoever you need to reach out to, and even if that is just grabbing a coffee with a mate, or whether that's actually something more formal, or just spending some time thinking about it. But like you said, it's all on a spectrum, and for you especially, is that you've dealt with things in your own way, but also you've spoken about things on before and through your social media channels and things like that, just to help. It's a bit of a cliche term, but reduce the stigma around it. And that is unbelievably important. So I kind of salute you for that as well. I think it's amazing. So the next thing I really wanted to talk about was the centralized program. Like, it's only one of 2 or 3 programs in the world, hockey wise, that do things this way. And you work predominantly in training blocks. So of what, like 6 to 12 weeks sometimes, roughly?
Less than that. It's usually 4 weeks.
Yeah.
On, and then a kind of decentralized / week off. So yeah, it's literally like 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, when you're going from junior international hockey, you've gone through all the age groups. It's been quite a nice. You had a really good under 21s experience as well. You am I right in thinking you were named goalkeeper of the tournament at a World Cup?
Not a World Cup, at a Sultan of Johor and Europeans. Okay,
so you've been kind of. It's a good sign, isn't it, when you get told that you've been goalkeeper of the tournament, especially at 2 tournaments at under 21s, and then you work your way and you've been selected into the centralised senior program. What was that like, acclimatizing?
Yeah, it's challenging, and I think I think that first year, I said it earlier, but I was put on a part-time contract. Yeah. So, like you say, I had a really successful under-21 kind of career. I played 3 years of under-21s, culminating with, like you say, we got a bronze at Europeans, so I got a goalie tournament, and then we had a good squad and we did well. And that was kind of the beginning of John Bleeby's super development squad coaching, which has gone on to do amazing things. And so, felt really good. Got offered. I was meant to be going on placement with my uni course, and then kind of got offered this part-time contract with the senior stuff and moved down for it from uni. And yeah, it was tough because there were a few different things. Firstly, I was part-time, which meant I could only train twice a week. And because there were 3 other full-time goalies, and then I was the 4th, which meant that if we had too many people at training, everyone gets less minutes, and there's a performance issue with that. So basically, I was training much less, like 50% less than the other goalies, and I was trying to catch them up. So it was like that felt a bit unfair. But it was also that I'd gone from being comfortable at the under-21 level, being able to perform at a decent level for a couple of years, to then going into the senior squad. And basically what I couldn't work out was, am I playing badly, or is the standard just that much better? And I'd say like the first year, the first few months, I was just getting dominated at training, both by flickers, like just the speed of everything. But it's hard to comprehend that, because it's how are you meant to calculate whether everyone here does something 30% faster, which means my brain's like not adjusted. Do you know what I mean? It just feels like you're being slow and therefore just playing badly. It's weird. So, and I had this a little bit at kind of 16 to 18. My first year of under 18s, I was useless and thought I wasn't destined to be out there. And then lo and behold, you catch up the next year and then you're better and blah, blah, blah. So I think, but obviously the step from 21s to seniors is that much greater because of, just the age and the amount they train and, the bottleneck. So I think that was the hardest bit, was one, that I couldn't train as much as everyone else. So I thought, how on earth am I meant to catch these guys up? And I remember specifically on a Tuesday, I lived with Giselle Ansley and Chris Griffiths at the time, and they'd go off to training on a Tuesday morning, and I'd go down to the kitchen and I'd be doing footwork drills like in the kitchen for an hour every Tuesday morning, because I was like, well, they're at training, how am I meant to like replicate that? And I'm there like throwing tennis balls off the kitchen cupboards trying to catch up.
Basically what everybody's doing at the moment.
Exactly, yeah, I was way ahead of the curve. But yeah, so that was really difficult, because like, how on earth am I ever going to catch these guys up when they're training more than I am? And then the second bit was, how do I judge my performance if I could have had an absolute worldie for the level that I was currently at, but still let in way more goals than I used to let in, because the standard is that much better. So I think what I had to do then, and what I'd recommend for kids or people going up levels, is that you have to have a really clear idea of your processes. So if a goal goes in, you have to be able to say, right, what are my processes? Were my feet, was I set? Was I in a good balanced set position? Were my feet on the floor? Were my hands in the right place? Was my head forward? Whatever the cues are that you use for your goalkeeping, you have to know what those are and be clear on kind of how that was. Because if I did a session then and I thought, actually, my feet were really good, I was balanced a lot of the time, do the thing, and I'm still letting quite a few goals in, then they're probably just good goals. So that's fine, and that means you don't get annoyed at it and other things. Whereas, because your brain is going to take a while to adapt, and they say like the average for an outfield player, I think, is to get used to the amount that we train at the intensity and the just pure hours per week takes about a year. So when the new kids come in, like you hear the guys talk about it, like they suffer for almost a year, most of them, because you just can't. Your body's just not used to doing the amount of physical work we do and the amount of training and stuff. So yeah, I think that's the thing. Don't be impatient. And if you move up an age bracket, or you get into performance camps that you hadn't done before or whatever, don't be impatient with it, and just make sure you have a clear idea of what your process is, because that's the only thing you can really control.
Yeah, mate, I think that's some top advice for because I think it happens to everyone, whether it's going to senior school, going to university, going to your first job, going to, I don't know, whatever it is. Like, common phrase, the process will take care of the outcome. And your processes within that are super important. And you went into a little bit of detail talking about, how are you set, where are you balanced? So like, all what I would call basics. So where are basics placed to be able to sort of build the foundations of the save that you want to make? What's your balance like? What's your footwork like? What's your set position like? Where are you standing and how are you seeing things? Pretty much those 5 things encompass like that foundation that you need, and it's a nice thing to be able to rely on. There's probably quite a few other things within there as well, but
no, I was just laughing at you calling it basics and foundation, because like literally my process is now, and I know I've gone full cycle because I don't have to think about technique and stuff. But like my processes and the stuff we work on now is just so basic. It's like cringeworthy. If you read my notes, it would be like it was a 10-year-old who hadn't played hockey before. It's like
but we forget that. Like, you don't need to overcomplicate it, for fact that the save might be complicated. Like, as if you can pick it, fine, you pick it apart, but without all of the things that are like, if you don't have all those things, it's going to be even harder, if not non-existent, to actually get right. And specifically with what you've just been talking about in terms of the speed of the game, like, well, you can't think about those things anyway. It's about the setup and then how you make the save. We were talking about how do you make the perfect save. Well, you kind of don't. You're constantly trying to actually make that save more comfortable, more controlled, bigger part of it, whatever pad you're using to make the save. But at the end of the day, sometimes you make saves without, and you think it's gone in the goal, but you just made it, and it's instinctive. You might have ended up on your backside or in a compromised position, but you've done what you've needed to beforehand to solve the problem, make the save. And you're right, you can rely on those processes at the beginning to inform how you might go about making that even easier next time. It's fascinating hearing you talk about the speed of the play and how long it takes for people to kind of acclimatise to that. My question would be, like, how could you make that transition easier and quicker? That it'll lead me onto the Pro League in a way, because there's obviously training and there's matches. So you play your club hockey, but it's not at the same level as you would play, obviously, at a Pro League game. And if the Pro League was around 6 years ago when you'd started, do you think that would have been because you kind of end up having more game time, the opportunities there to play a higher level more often? Do you think that would have helped?
I think the Pro League is an interesting one because it is effectively the opposite of how we used to train and compete. So we used to play 2 or 3 tournaments a year. So we'd have the World League semi-finals and finals. You'd have your major tournament that year, Europeans, World Cup, whatever that was, and then you might have an Aslam Shah or an invitational tournament in and around that. So it's like 3 tournaments a year, which means you're averaging 4 months of training for one tournament, and you build and build and build, go to a 2-week tournament, compete, and then you go again. And that was kind of how we did it. And what that allows is you can really plan and structure 4 months of training to, right, I'm going to get better at this here, then I'm going to get better at this, then I'm going to get better at that. Then we go to the tournament and blah, blah, blah. And then you watch the tournament back and you go, right, I wasn't very good at this, this needs to be better, blah, blah, blah. And then you do that again. With Pro League, and Pro League is very similar to club in this respect for kind of younger goalies who obviously aren't playing in the Pro League, but it's you train in the week and then you have the game on the weekend and then you think, right, what went well in that game, what didn't, and then you kind of try and get that better in the week and then you go again. And Pro League's not, it's not every week, but it is very, very fast for international stuff, and we might only have 2 weeks, or we have back-to-back weekends. We were playing every weekend, I think, in May. We were meant to be. Stuff like that. So it's a completely different, it's a different skill, because you actually can't get the technical development in that you'd usually get in. So it's very much about performing at your best for the Pro League games, but then also trying to make these little marginal gains in between. And I think for me, it's something I really struggle with because I'm so analytical, wanting to improve bits and bobs that I struggle to train and not think, okay, well, what about this? This could be better. How am I going to train that? I need to get that better, which is fine, but kind of like traditionally, but if we had a big build up to a tournament, that 3 weeks before the tournament or 2 or 3 weeks before the tournament, you'd want to stop thinking about technical stuff completely because the work's done. And like you say, it should be automatic by then. And to be honest, anything 2 weeks out from a tournament, you're not getting better at anything in that time anyway. It's pointless. So you just need to be able to play on instinct and just relax and go into it. So that's kind of 2 weeks out, I think, from a major tournament. But then Pro League, obviously, if you were constantly in that state, you're basically not getting better for 5 months of the year, 6 months. So that was difficult last year because you had to kind of go, right, we've got 3 sessions this week. Do you want to work on your bottom right corner save? Yes. Okay, but don't overthink it and still work on this. And then when you go into the game, you've got to then completely blank all that out, if you know what I mean. So it's a completely different challenge. And I think for young goalies progressing through, that would be my recommendation, is like have a clear process that, right, this is me in training with a goalie coach trying to get better at a certain thing. And then this over here is me, the athlete, competing. I'm not thinking about any of this stuff. I'm just acting on instinct. I'm just playing, because you have to be able to turn that on and off. And like anyone has to do it because it comes to club games or whatever it is. But those for me have to be very separate things.
And you mentioned the club thing, this club games as well. Obviously, you end up having to dip in and out of a few club games as well with Surbiton. I'm sure you'd love to play the whole season and make sure there's some consistency there with them as well. I'm sure most athletes in GB setup would as well, and I'm sure the clubs would too. Pro League and the consistency of playing obviously brings up some challenges with how do you develop, but how do you perform at the same time. I'm sure that if we spoke to a Premier League football goalkeeper, they'd probably be able to give us a few tips on how to do that. But because everything's geared up to blocks and to training, if we take like the timeline, like in your experience so far, like what's an ideal preparation timeline for you? Like let's say the Olympics are happening this summer. Yeah. Like, and if you could go like, right, I've had a training block, I'm having a rest, and then I go into the build up. Like, I'm sure with this, you kind of knew what you were going into anyway, this summer. But if you had your bit of paper, what would that look like? Like, would that be 8 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks? Like you talked about the technical development period, and then having that bit before the tournament, basically just doing things like sharpening, where you said you can't really do a huge amount of development. You just got to be ready. So is there an ideal sort of timeline for that for you?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it, I think you probably nailed it there. I think 8 weeks is probably good. I think and it depends on how major we're talking about the things you want to work on. So like we've gone through transitions, for example, kind of deciding to stand up more on corners, whereas we used to dive a lot more. Now that was a specific transition that actually took the best part of like a year, effectively, of technical work. So obviously, if you were going to say, right, you've got a tournament in 3 months, but you've got to change something major, it's a different thing. Whereas I think if you've got your technique nailed on and you're comfortable with how you're goalkeeping, I think 8 weeks is good enough. And that would include, for me, like a decent physical block to make sure that you're physically ready kind of 4 weeks out. And then you want to go over a bit of everything. So you might have a week of smothering work. You might have a week of, not just specifically, but like the highlight of what you're focusing on is, diving this week, whatever it is, that corners throughout, and then building up to that like I said, that kind of crescendo of 2 or 3 weeks of just like, yeah, you nailed it there, sharpening. And that's the stuff, you know, me and you used to do it, or used to do it with Ali McGregor at Loughborough, where it's just like, right, this is just, there's no thinking, there's no analysing, there's no
that's got to be like a nice
yeah.
session for you, because you like it's freedom not to think, but also is that challenging where you're like, oh, I really want to think about something.
It is, especially when you're literally building up to this tournament, which is really important to you, and it's like you let in a bad goal or something, and you're like, oh my god, that can't happen in next week or whatever. But actually, it's just, yeah, okay, don't. And it's really difficult because I, you know, like I said, overactive mind, right? Oh, I didn't save that because the angle of my leg guard wasn't right, and I didn't quite step before, and like that all happens in a split second in your mind. So to turn that off is tricky. But the thing that I would say is that, like, you operating at your best, like we have kind of a mental priming thing that we do, and everyone's looks different. I've talked about it on that video, but the work is done completely, and once you get to a tournament, like there is nothing really you can do. Like the work is, you have to trust that all that work you've done over your whole life has culminated to this, you know, being that you currently are. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And all that there is feedback, effectively. So you have to kind of trust your processes and just go out and let it go, and just whatever happens, happens, and try and enjoy that as much as possible. And I think for me, that's kind of like 2 weeks out. Also, sorry, there's a wasp in my bedroom. 2 weeks out, yeah, is, you know, that's the time, I think, where it's just like, right, this is, just let it go now. And it's hard because you let in a goal and you have to be like, doesn't matter, whatever, next. And like that can come across oddly when you're just about.
Well, yeah, exactly. You want to show that you care.
Exactly,
and you do care, and that's the battle. You if you care too much, it's going to be detrimental, and you don't care enough, it's also going to be detrimental. So finding that middle ground is not always that easy. But
no, exactly.
If you were just a final question for you, mate. If you were looking back at your younger self, is there any advice you'd given? So, and yeah, let's say an 18-year-old Harry Gibson. I'm sure I try to give you plenty of advice, but I'm not sure it went in. Yeah, is there any advice to an 18-year-old Harry Gibson?
Deep question. Hockey specific.
Anything you like.
I think you kind of touched on it earlier, but patience would be one. I'm exceedingly impatient. I get bored easily, and I get distracted by different things. So I'll try out something this week, and I'll be like, oh, did that work? I don't know. And then I'll try something else next week, and I'll read a book, and it will say that you should do this, or I'll start doing that, and blah blah blah. Yeah, so patience and like consistency is king. Like that gets thrown around a lot, but if you want to get good at something, you just have to turn up consistently, and that is going to feel different at different times in your life. It's going to feel different day in, day out. Some days you're not going to want to do it. Some days you're going to really want to do it. Motivation will come and go. But I think if you have real clarity over what you want to get out of something and the reason that you're doing stuff. So I know you guys shared something about finding what your why is. Recently, I think that's really valuable, and we did that as a squad after the Rio Olympics, and that was extremely valuable because you have to know why you're doing something, and you have to have a deeper connection to that other than just, oh, I'm just doing it because I like it, or because I have always been good at it, or whatever, because that doesn't stand up over time. So if you get to a point where it gets really challenging, or you get dropped for something and you have to question all these things, if you don't have that rock solid kind of, right, this is why I'm doing it, and it's completely true as well, I would add. Like, mine's not even really about hockey. Mine's just about kind of pursuing, for myself, getting better at something that I can adapt and get, manifest things into skills that I can then, put into service of stuff, that's kind of mine, and hockey just happens to be that wagon at the moment that I'm on, and doing that thing. So yeah, for me, where was I there with that? So the advice would be, find that and work out what it is and what you stand for and what your values are, and therefore kind of what you're trying to get out of things, and then have the consistency to follow that through once you've done it. Because it is not, if you look at our squad and the way that we train, we are very fortunate to have a centralized program, which means we turn up every day and we train every day, and other teams don't do that. But it's the players in that squad who turn up with a real consistency of discipline and effort, and their attitude is right the whole time, who are consistent with that. Those are the ones that go on to be fantastic international players. And you notice that in the squad, even the differences with that. Like, training every day doesn't make you that. It's having the consistency of how you approach it. So yeah, patience and consistency would be the two.
Fantastic, Harry. That has been a really, really interesting talk about quite a few different things, and it's as someone that coached you when you were younger, it's and actually not too long ago as well. Hopefully, we'll be on a hockey pitch again soon when this the situation blows over. But it's been, so far amazing to see how far you've come and what you're doing, and continue to do so. The other thing, we need to plug a little activity that you've got going on with Crazy Catch sometime soon. Depends when this episode goes out. But tell us a little bit about your crazy efforts to raise a bit of money.
I think with everything going on, and well, actually, my grandma passed away a couple of weeks ago, which is obviously it's kind of spurred me on to think about how I might be able to raise money in the current environment. And I wanted to make it kind of goalkeeping specific, because it's something that I can do, but also something that is just something that's kind of relatable for people. So what I'm going to be doing sometime in the near future is throwing a ball against a crazy catch, which is how I replicate goalkeeping when I'm at home. But I'm going to try and do it for 12 hours solidly, and see how many times I can throw the ball against the net in 12 hours and catch it, obviously.
I think that's going to be as much a physical as it is mental challenge for you. Things pop into my mind about how you're going to fuel, how you're going to, comfort breaks, as well. And you might be doing some sort of live feed at some point.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. I mean, touching on that, the idea was that I wanted to raise money for the care home and care homes across the country. And the idea is that, caregivers and workers and NHS staff often work 12-hour shifts. So the idea was that I replicate that. So I'll be on my feet for 12 hours. I'll be concentrating for 12 hours. These are all things that people, caregivers do every day for, modest wages and not a lot of recognition. So if I can replicate that, then hopefully that will be worthwhile. And it should be, like you say, it should be a challenge. I think there's quite a few things which are going to be really tough, both physically, mentally, and like you say, fueling is going to be interesting, and how breaks I take and stuff. But I'm excited; it should be good. And like I said, I'll there's a video going out soon, hopefully, so people can see what I'm up to. I'm going to video my training for it and things like that. So,
okay. Well, you're a good bloke, and rather you than me with that. But really, really good luck with it, and we'll definitely be there spurring you on as well. But like I said, thanks very much for your time, mate. It's been really, really insightful, and hopefully see you pretty soon.
No worries. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Harry.